Well, to be honest, I never thought this was possible. I have all the proof I'll ever need, and I still find it hard to believe. She did it right under my nose. My wife, my Myra, is having sex with another man, a man whom everyone should respect. How did I know this? Easily. What am I going to do about it? It is obvious. I'll figure it out. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. My name is Curtis Carruthers. My wife's name is Myra. We've been married for 2 years. I'm 32, she's 33. We both experienced failed first marriages. My first wife, Zoe, I caught in bed with my ex-boyfriend. In my bed, Myra had much the same thing. That's why it's so sad, I thought, and so did she, that since we had already been through the hell of divorce, we could build something together. Everybody knows, lesson learned, don't make the same mistake twice. I'm such a fool. I admit I love Myra, in fact, I still love Zoe, but this time it's just too much. How did I catch her? I'm an English teacher at a local public college, teaching classics, Homer, Virgil, Seneca, Ovid, and so on. Oh, I hear everyone. A nerd who has his head in the clouds, studying and teaching fantasies that no one cares about. It's true, but I'm not a complete idiot. I know a thing or two about money. I know about mutual funds, stock market, and real estate. I saved some money on the side. Moreover, I write, and not the usual dry nonsense related to the fact that I love to teach. Writing is an investment. People, women, love to read historical fiction. What could be more interesting than love stories involving people like Helen, Hecuba, Andromache, or Boudica? Oh well, I don't write about them. I write love stories about their closest friends, nephews, and daughters. Women love these things. Am I publishing? Now yes, but on that fateful day when I caught Myra, I was not there yet. In fact, my success was the trigger that started it all. I'm getting distracted. I was at home working on a novel about Vercingetorix. He was the chief of the Arverni tribe, the elected supreme leader of all the tribes of long-haired Gaul, modern France. In their war against Julius Caesar, he and his people won the Battle of Gergovia, but then lost decisively at Alesia. Vercingetorix surrendered and was taken to Rome, where he was later executed, but many of his fellow tribesmen, unwilling to surrender, fled east across the Rhine and settled among the Germans. The novel I was working on was about this dangerous journey. Imagine the survivors of a defeated tribe fighting their way through Roman-controlled Gaul to reach Germany. However, I have already written a long piece of fiction about the Etruscans and how they settled in Italy. It was a love story, and to my delight, my agent had just called to say that a reputable publishing company was interested in it. In terms of monetary fame, I could hit the jackpot. I had to tell my wife about this. Oh yes, my wonderful wife. Her story had an interesting twist. She married her college sweetheart, but he wasn't what she hoped for. Getting into her own troubles, my Myra called a taxi. Myra was an English major whose dream was to have her own little bookstore, a place where she could meet people, get to know up-and-coming authors, and have little gatherings where writers could discuss and sell their books. Even with my previous divorce and the accompanying alimony and child support, we had money. Myra had found her place, a private souvenir corner next to a coffee shop that wasn't Starbucks, just a few blocks from several prestigious private schools. We looked at the place, signed a contract, bought it, and set her up. It's that simple. Myra's dream had come true, and I was a key element in her success. It was around this time that we started our family. Myra and I had problems. We dated for a few months, talked about what we wanted, and talked about kids. From my first marriage, I had a girl and a boy, and I, of course, loved them, but I wanted more. Myra said she didn't want children, but agreed that if she married me, we would try to have one, and we were lucky. To please her, we bought a house just a few blocks from her store in a quiet, intellectually advanced old neighborhood. We were surrounded by doctors, lawyers, businessmen, and other college professors just like us. It was a classic place, beautiful old houses of medium size, tree-lined streets, manicured but not too fussy lawns, mothers and grandmothers regularly pruning and weeding perfect little gardens in a community supplemented by many excellent private schools. We had everything. We would be good parents. We started off right. We named our little boy Wayne after her father. He had to have the best, and with a baby, the best meat, above all, a safe and secure environment. We had money. We equipped every corner of the house with cameras and microphones. Wherever we were in the house, if Wayne wasn't in sight, we could watch him. We had iPhones, and in critical places like bedrooms, playrooms, kitchen, my office, living room, even the garage, we had all the necessary cameras and microphones. We didn't take any risks. Of course, Myra's bookstore was no worse equipped. State-of-the-art devices were installed in every aisle, behind the counter, and, of course, in the back room. Not a stone was left unturned, not a single opportunity for some terrible accident. Not with us. Our child will never be unprotected. By now, everyone probably knows what happened. Myra's little bookstore was only open for a short time. We opened it in late spring, just before school ended, so she was still trying to build a clientele. She's a pretty good businesswoman, decided to do without the electronic door chime, replacing it with an old-fashioned chime that is more cozy, she said. It was my job to set the bell. Unfortunately for some, they were still sitting in their neat little box behind the counter. My agent's message was so exciting that I missed the call or text. I wanted to see her face when I told her. I walked out of the house. Little Wayne was snuggled securely in his crib with our nanny, an adorable college student studying, what else, English. With Wayne safe, I left the house, went into the garage, found my recent GM SUV, got in and drove off. Summer morning traffic was light. I turned off our cul-de-sac, drove down Willow Drive, onto the main street, past one of the private schools, and to Myra's store. The entire trip only took about 10 minutes. I parked in the small lot, closed the windows, got out, and walked along the sidewalk to the front door. Closed, said the cardboard sign. How strange, it's not even 11 a.m. and it's closed. Maybe she went for coffee and a bun. Okay, I thought, I'll stop by and surprise her when she gets back. I opened the door, walked in, and headed to the utility room. I had to walk past the counter. It was then that I noticed something that would challenge my ideas about a happy marriage. Out of curiosity, I turned and went behind the counter. And here it is, or rather she is, on the screen in the back room. It was one of those moments that you read about, or in my case, write about. Thank God I didn't eat. I stood and looked at the screen. I was overcome by weakness and fatigue. It was like a nightmare. This can't be happening. I continued to look at the screen. I was in complete disbelief. My mind, my body was churning uncontrollably. I have read that sometimes, although rarely, when a person is asleep or half asleep, he finds himself trapped in a dream where he cannot control his body. He simply cannot move. They are paralyzed. That's how it was. I felt so weak, so helpless that I fell backwards. Luckily, Myra's chair behind the counter was nearby and caught me. For a few seconds, I don't know how long, I just sat there and watched my wife tear my heart out. Then it started, other emotions, or let's say, more primal reactions. I felt a pain in my stomach, excruciatingly painful, my heart pounding like a knife stabbing into my chest. It was physical. Pain, agony, torture, oh, heartache, despair. How terrible. Suffering. I would have died. Oh, my new wife, my new life. My second chance at happiness was dissolving on the screen right before my eyes. I was dying. Then, just as quickly, I felt a rush. Nervous energy, a powerful release of anxious, panicky force. I knew what it was: adrenaline. I had an adrenaline rush. I had to move. I had to do something. I had to act. Take something. Hit someone, lose your temper. Then, just as quickly, the adrenaline wore off. I felt cold and nervous. I had to get up. If I had stayed where I was, I would have started crying. I knew this too, a natural reaction of the body. Another look at the screen. I jumped out of my chair and walked down the 2 steps that separated the back of the counter and the store. I quickly moved to the children's section in the back right corner. The store configuration was such that the back room was at the back left of the store, with the children's department located in a quiet corner to the right. That's where I headed, where I decided to wait quietly. My Myra and her adulterous companion spent a few more minutes. It was for the best. I was breathing too hard. They would have noticed me. Then they left. To my rage, I realized who my wife was sleeping with. It was the director of the school of St. Agricola, one of the nearby private schools, a very expensive and very selective educational institution. What is this bastard doing to my wife? His wife looks like Charlize Theron, and I'm told she has a personality to match. My mind was back to square one. His wife sucks, he sucks, and my wife sucks. Shock, disbelief, apathy, they were repressed. Now I felt only anger, a deep burning rage, a blind rage beyond all human description. My mind returned to the ancient sources. I was Achilles looking at Hector's mutilated body. I was Nero Drusus Germanicus. I was really, really pissed off. I retreated further into the children's department. I shouldn't have been seen. Peeking from behind the corner shelf, I watched as she escorted him to the door. She flipped the sign from closed to open. She took out the key and began to fiddle with it, only to discover that the door was not locked. She looked confused for a moment. Then she smiled and shrugged. How nice. She stroked the rogue's cheek with her fingers, then kissed him on the lips. Right on the lips, hand on cheek, then kiss on lips. Oh my God, how disgusting. It was a nightmare. She waved to him as he left. It was one of her cute little finger waves that she liked to give me. No is nothing sacred. My heart withered, but my inner beast roared like an angry lion. Without noticing my presence, she walked cheerfully to the back of the counter. For several minutes, she appeared to be fiddling with some papers. One day, I saw her look at the front door, a strange look. Was she puzzled? Forgot? Of course not. She looked around the store, but didn't notice me. You almost wish she would notice. She found her iPhone. I knew. I found mine, and before it rang, I turned it off. She listened for a few seconds, shrugged, closed the phone, put it down, took the tablet, and quietly headed to the utility room. She hummed or sang something. It sounded familiar. Probably nothing except that I had a crisis to deal with. I knew she'd only be there for a few seconds, so as soon as the door closed, I headed for the exit, hoping she wouldn't check any of the surveillance screens. I went outside and went straight to the cafe. My main opponent, Dr. Wallace Prendergast, was there. I walked over and stood next to him. We were slightly acquainted, so I asked, "How are you? Nice day, isn't it?" He turned, surprised, replied, "Oh, Curtis Carruthers, isn't it? Yes, a beautiful day." I was so angry, so ready to snap. I hated this man. I wanted him dead. I forced myself to smile. "Oh yeah, lovely. School's opening soon, isn't it?" "Yes," he replied. "We are looking forward to a banner year." I commented, "I hope so. You know, my wife owns a bookstore nearby. She hopes she can provide your children with the educational materials they may need." Sneaky bastard. He played it serious and straightforward. "Is that so? I'll put the teachers' reading lists on it." What a slimy piece of crap. I clenched my teeth. Damn, bad luck. I'm a civilized person. My mind was racing. I knew how I could handle this son of a bitch, and in the process, I would get my despicable wife, too. I smiled again and told the bastard, "I know she'll be very grateful," I added. "I know she loves you." He grinned like he knew it, took his latte and said, "Gotta go. See you soon." The smile froze on my face. I dreamed of new ways to make him suffer. I replied, "Yes, see you soon." I ordered 2 lattes and 2 pies, one each for me and my wife. As I walked back to my wife's little bookstore, one thought kept running through my head over and over and over again. Thank the gods for the gift of technology. Returning to the bookstore, I paused for a moment at the door, peering at the top of the frame. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my wife. I picked up the paper tray of coffee and the bag of muffins. I smiled tenderly. She smiled back. I thought, smile now, bitch, but not for long. I approached her with bags in my hands, coffee and sweets for my sweetie. "Oh, thank you, dear," she hesitated and asked. "You're here at an unusual time. Is something wrong?" I had a fax from my agent in my pocket. but I figured it was one of those things she would never see. Yes, I said. Got a fax from my agent. The editors liked my book, but they want to make some changes. Again, she asked. Looks like it, I replied. I'll talk about it later over dinner. Right now, I thought it was time to start making calls. At first, she was puzzled. Mine? Then she realized, you mean the front door bells, then added with gentle sarcasm, it's about time. Install them properly. I grinned. Where's the box? I thought. Double meanings are everywhere. She found a box and a screwdriver. Here you go, honey. Honey, I thought. The bitch called me honey. Thank you, dear. I took the box and the tool, walked to the door, set the bells, waved to her, and left. I had to go. I couldn't stand the sight of her. If I had stayed another minute, I would have given away all my feelings, or hers. It was time for me to return home and consider my first steps. I hated her. I hated him. I hated him so much. I hated them both with all my heart and soul. They will pay. Oh, how they will pay. I am back. First, I checked on our nanny. Wayne was fine, so I went back to my office. No papers to check, no classes to prepare. I had time. Everything was in the cloud. All our video and audio recordings were there. There were many of them. Where to begin? First, the system had only been installed at the bookstore for a few weeks, and I knew my wife's work schedule. Did I want to watch it all? No, I needed help. Call me a bastard. Call me a sneaky son of a bitch. Call me an asshole. But I knew who to ask for help. I'll call my ex-wife Zoe. Why should she, you ask? Well, she gave birth to 2 of my children. I love all my children, and honestly, like I said, I still love my fucking cheating first wife. Heck, I see her every Wednesday, most Thursdays, and every other weekend when I pick up my kids. She still wears her rings. She refuses to date others. She doesn't change her last name back. The children tell me that she dresses up every time on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and on the weekends when I come to pick them up. They say all she talks about is how she will bring me back one day. They say I should be nicer to her. They say that every time I leave after visits, she cries. But they don't know what I know. That's funny. Every damn time I come in, she reminds me that she loves me. She's still apologizing. She says she wants to explain everything, to fully explain what happened. For what? Do I need to know this? Hell, I'm still not entirely sure, absolutely sure, what happened. This is madness. Her mom calls me all the time. My mom and dad don't talk to me half the time. Her father hates me. Even my brother says I should at least listen to her. Well, I didn't listen, and I don't intend to. And period. Damn, we broke up almost 3 years ago, and damn, she's still trying to explain what she did. I told her I would never forgive her. I keep telling her that she needs to move on. She just looks at me and starts crying. Is it true? I'm glad she didn't move on. Moving on, that's what she needs. I remember how and when I caught her. I was to go on a month-long summer excursion with a group to see and explore several archaeological sites in Greece and Turkey. This was a big step for me professionally. I was at the airport. There was an unexpected flight delay and then a whole day of delays, so I decided to return home. I caught her in my bed. In my bed. I walked in and saw her with that stupid bastard Brandon. I remember how he flew out of the house. He ran out faster than he could pull up his pants. And Zoe? Zoe started to get hysterical. She completely lost control. She continued to cry and scream at me. She continued to say that it is not what it seems. Isn't it what it seems? Did she think I was stupid enough not to know what I saw? Isn't it what it seems? Was I an idiot? She was in my bed with that idiot. There were no excuses, no explanations, nothing. I don't care, and no nonsense about it. I know I made her take those pills and tonic in the morning. I know what I did. I remember. I'm sure of it. Zoe never finished college. That's another story, so she never had a chance at a really good job. However, with a little help, I found her something at the local public elementary school our kids attend. She answers phones and performs other duties. It only works partially, comes with the children and leaves with them. If she gets sick and can't work, I help the school a little financially to cover the extra costs. She doesn't know about it. Oh, screw it, another story. Zoe is not coping with pregnancy very well. Oh, she's a great mother. I mean, problems with pregnancy and so on. We had sex when I was in my second year, and she was in my first year. She got pregnant, so I did my duty. I took responsibility and married her. I probably would have married her anyway. 6 months later, she lost our child. It would be a little girl. It hurt me, but it broke poor Zoe's heart. I admit I thought about leaving after that, but she was so helpless, and her mom and dad were so helpful that I just couldn't. Zoe was an only child, so instead of them paying for her college education, they paid for mine. Now, no one should judge them harshly. I got my money back, most of it. Well, a lot of it, some of it anyway. We lived with her mom and dad while I was studying. After her accident, Zoe and I were careful with our sexual needs and took precautions. We were really happy then. It was like living in a fantasy. We waited until I graduated from university before starting our family. I taught in a public high school during the day and took night classes to earn my master's degree. I then retired from teaching and entered a doctoral program. Zoe's mom and dad helped us along the way. Well, her mom and dad did little more than help. Her dad was a retired contractor who served on several boards and was elected to the county council several times. I'll say this, he loves his daughter, he is absolutely crazy about our children, not so much about me. Hey, she's the one who changed it, not me. Plus, I didn't know she was pregnant again when I caught her in bed with brains and waste, so the second pregnancy loss wasn't my fault. No guilt here for me. This is a completely different story. I was at my old house a little after 10 in the evening. Zoe was waiting for me. Some might think I was stupid for involving my ex-wife in my marital problems, but who else could I trust, really trust? Sounds stupid, I know. I walked up to the front door. She waited. She opened the door and let me in. She was wearing a beautiful little beige blouse with short sleeves and slightly undone buttons, with cute lace shoulders and a Peter Pan collar trimmed in lace. She wasn't wearing a bra, never wore it. She looked good, especially with a dark plaid skirt that reached mid-thigh. Her hair was pulled back into two ponytails, her usual eyeshadow, and subtle pink lip gloss. No tights, only shoes, brown with laces on 2-inch heels, and beige socks to match the blouse. Damn her, that cheating bitch. I knew that she dressed like that on purpose to seduce me. She gave me one of her soft smiles. It must be important for you to arrive so late. I walked past her and headed into the living room. I didn't want to sit on the couch next to her. As I walked by, I said, yes. She followed me. I settled into my old rocking chair. This bitch got down on her knees, curled up on the floor at my feet. She put her hand on my leg. So tell me. It's about Myra. Her fingers carelessly slid along my thigh. What's wrong with Myra? I caught her with another man. As soon as I said this, I realized that I had made a mistake. Zoe leaned closer. I'm sorry, Curtis, but you know I'm here for you. I thought so. I needed to get out of there. Listen, I have notes, but there are so many of them, I don't have time. She read my thoughts. You want me to look for you. It's a lot to ask, I know, but... She looked so concerned. You look upset, and that's understandable. Would you like me to make you some chamomile tea? No, I just want. Will you do it? She looked up. You know I'll do anything for you. I started to sweat. If I hadn't done something, I would. I stood up. I knew it was a mistake to come here so late. Are you still using the same desktop computer? She nodded. Getting up, she used my legs to get up. Uh-huh. Okay, I'll send them tomorrow morning. Are you still coming to see our kids on Wednesday? I was so excited, she should have known. Robotically, I replied, yes. She smiled, blinked her long eyelashes at me and sang, okay, we'll have dinner together. I'll cook your favorite dish, steamed Alaskan crab legs. It'll be like we're a family again. Putting the kids to bed together, and then. God help me. I should have known that coming here would be like this. I snapped, "No, I don't want to go through all this." Hands on my chest, just under my chin. She put on her guilty expression. Ever seen a Labrador puppy look at someone? She whispered softly, "Please, we've done this before." I nervously snapped, "No, that won't happen." I had to get out of there. I saw her trying to hold back her tears. Nothing ever happens. I slipped out of her arms and headed towards the front door. "Just so you know." She really cried, just tears, no sobs. "Goddamn bitch. Cheating fucking bitch." She followed me to the door and whispered, "I know." I got out on the other side of that door and breathed a sigh of relief. This bitch is one manipulative, cheating beast. I hurried to my SUV, got in, and backed out of the driveway. She was standing at the door when I left. Oh, that lying bitch, I hated her. I was furious the whole way home. First of all, I couldn't go home. I had to go to a motel. Secondly, why does Zoe have to be such a cheater? Third, I knew I should never have married Myra, and now there's Wayne. Oh, fuck it, Myra. Take care of Myra. After I withdrew some cash from the ATM, I spent the night at the Hamptons. I dreamed about my college days, my first teaching job, and the past, and I woke up in pain. They had a typically good breakfast, and I got home a little later than Myra's usual departure time. Of course, the nanny was there. Myra left a note asking me to call her when I returned. Just out of spite, I decided to wait an hour. That way she would understand that I probably left her out on purpose. Then I had a suspicion. She would either be behind the counter or in the back room. I sat down at my desktop computer and brought up the cameras from the store. She was in the back room. I called, "Myra?" "Yes, Curtis." I waited as long as I could. I needed to get to the store by 9 o'clock to pick up a package from Federal Express. She was fiddling with some papers and talking through the speakerphone, so I asked, "Have you come up with any ideas for my novel?" It took her a few seconds to answer, but she said, "No, I think the editors are wrong. The story is good the way it is." I thought, time to start tightening the screws. I said, "I came up with one," without giving her a chance to interrupt. "Let's say in the book Penthesilea is not a princess, but just a noble woman, but not a princess. I could say that Deiphobus represents an increase in status, like an exchange for something the best. You know, women often do this now. The husband works hard at the company, the wife is attracted to a more prestigious colleague or acquaintance of her husband. She betrays her husband for the sake of the status that this brings. The husband finds out and tragedy follows." Myra put the papers aside and replied, "No, I don't like it. It will make Penthesilea superficial, and she is not superficial. She is a courageous woman who loves her chosen man." I agreed. "Yes, she will seem superficial, won't she?" I added, "Maybe it could be like a wife who wants more or better sex. We know that women and men have similar, if not identical, sexual needs, but sometimes there is a woman who wants more and more." I tweaked the knife. "You said that I was better than your first husband in this regard. It could be something like this, don't you think?" She had her head in her hands, and I couldn't see her expression on the screen, but her answer sounded uncertain. No. I mean, well, all men are basically the same, or so they say, but for a powerful warrior like Penthesilea, a woman who has already been with other men before her chosen warrior, I think it will sound unconvincing, I mean, false to the reader." I agreed. "You're right. It would be incredibly fake. No woman with character would do that." She looked nervous on screen. I went deeper. "That's good. I'm glad I get your point of view. You have character. You should see the fragility of such an argument." She replied, "You should call your editor. The whole idea sounds wrong." "No," I replied. "I promise to give them what they want, and a promise is a promise." Then I took another hit. Perhaps it could be a woman who would see some external benefit in this, like some key resource. I pressed. Let's take someone like Dr. Prendergast. Not him, he's too old. It was necessary to insert a small jab. But let's say a young director who could attract his students to your bookstore so that they buy the necessary additional educational materials there. Let's say this director even concluded with, you make a deal that he'll get a little kickback for his school if they use your store. That could work, right? I got something this time, an obvious big sigh, and she definitely sounded nervous. I think her voice rose a decibel or two. How would you describe it for Penthesilea? I quickly replied, not jewelry or anything like that, but say, a battalion of Deiphobus's best troops, or maybe a special guard as a gift. Oh, she got it. I watched as she looked around the room. Finally, she found the camera and looked at it. We maintained direct eye contact for a few seconds. She knew. In a thin voice, looking straight into the camera, she replied, no, I think it would be too obvious. I mean, too obvious for the other men and women in King Priam's court, and especially for a deep sigh, almost sob, her hero. We looked at each other through the camera. She turned off the phone, stood up, walked around the table, looked directly at the camera, and then hung something on it. Crap. Now she knows. I turned off the phone and went back to work. I got to work, and it was crazy. 6 monitors at home and 4 in the bookstore. A question flashed through my mind. Did I want Zoe to see what Myra and I were doing at home? I think no, but why not? What I was afraid of. Was I afraid that Zoe would see me with another woman? This could not be the reason, or could it? I started downloading all the materials from the store. The counter, of course, the back room, everywhere. Something must have started somewhere. My guess was that Myra's infidelity most likely started in the front. I could be wrong. It might have started with the lyrics, but that could have been figured out later. I had almost finished downloading from the store and was ready to send the materials to Zoe when I heard the front door. It had to be Myra. I clicked send, and the materials were sent. Myra came into my office and said, I checked the GPS on your iPhone. You spent last night in the Hamptons. Can you explain what's going on? Damn it, I thought, let down by the very tools I used. I replied, you know what's going on. I watched and wondered how long she would try to hide the truth, but it turned out not to be long. Myra crossed the room and sat next to me on the wooden chair. Okay, you got me. Caught on what? I asked. Don't pretend, Curtis. I know you were in the bookstore yesterday morning. I didn't flinch. So how long? She looked down at her shoes. She had black lace-up shoes, 2-inch heels, the type that older women wear. She fiddled with the buttons on the sleeve of her blouse, just this once. She didn't look up. I added, it's all recorded, Myra. She started crying. I thought, women and their tears. Through tears and quiet sobs, she whispered, Curtis. How long? Since June, right after graduation. You mean the graduation at St. Agricola's before Remembrance Day? Still in tears, she nodded. Remember, I was invited to their post-graduation buffet that day. That's when it started, she corrected herself. No, it was the next day, Sunday. I felt sick. I knew this feeling. I've experienced it before with Zoe. These things dull the senses, make a person feel numb, distant, disconnected. 7 weeks. Oh, Curtis, I'm so sorry. I heard her, but it sounded from another time zone, another world. Of course I know. You're sorry, my such a sorry wife. She reached out and touched my arm. Curtis, can we? I think my dead expression stopped her. I finished her sentence. I doubt it. I mean, what would be the purpose? Again, wiping away tears, she replied, there is Wayne. I was still somewhere else, alive but dead. Myra, we've both been through this before. I thought we agreed that we were hurt enough to not fall into the same trap twice. You already told me about my first husband, about the pain, the betrayal, the anger and feelings of worthlessness, about your feelings of inferiority. I told you about Zoe. I thought we understood each other. Curtis, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I felt so weak. I wanted to go somewhere, lie down, and just go back to sleep. I asked, just out of curiosity, want to tell me why? She stopped crying. It started out more as a business proposition, I think. He mentioned my new store. He told me about the kids at his school, the contacts he has with other private schools. He said he could refer me to a lot of clients. She hesitated, then continued. He said there would be a quid pro quo. I interrupted. You get the sales, and he gets you. She shuddered. Yes, that's about it. When she looked at me, she reminded me of another story. I sometimes imagined what Iphigenia, Agamemnon's daughter, might have looked like just before he sacrificed her. Agamemnon was warned that the only way to get favorable wind before Troy was to kill his innocent daughter. In some versions, she was rescued and escaped, but in all the versions I have read, the girl's mother Clytemnestra ended up killing her husband on her return from Troy out of revenge. Looking at Myra's pathetic face, I wondered if I would be Agamemnon killing the father, or if I would be Clytemnestra, avenging mother. Then I thought, does it matter? I asked. But that wasn't all, was it? No, she sighed. When it started, I felt cheap and dirty. I knew I was betraying you. I wanted it to stop. I wanted to confess. I told him we had to stop. But things have changed, haven't they? Curtis, oh, I'm so sorry. Try to understand. As it went on, it became more like a game. He even called it that. He had a wife. I had a husband. It was like a game of hide and seek. I hid this dirty, terrible thing, but pretended it didn't mean anything and was funny. He and I had a secret. In a way, it was really a game, just a stupid game. He called it a secret date. For this, it makes him almost innocent, just an innocent, stupid game. It hurt. I started to feel a pain in my stomach. Have you ever thought about what this could do to me? She cried again, sobbing. I was thinking, but I remembered the words of my first husband. He talked about fun, about the idea of keeping a secret, about how fun it was. How fun it was, not like sex, but like a game. Do you remember what you told me when you told me about your husband's reasons? Oh, I remember. I remember. And I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Oh, shut up, Myra. Just shut up. You didn't want to get caught, but you did, and now here we are. She wilted. Tears flowed in large drops. Please, Curtis. It was so irresponsible. I was so frivolous. It was only about selling books. Sex didn't matter. I say this, it didn't mean anything, just like it was a game. I'm so sorry. Please let me atone. I was consumed by anger, which I had until now hidden. If I hadn't kicked her out of the house, I would have killed her. I looked at my watch. This allowed me not to look at her. Myra, I said, go away. Leave now. Go back to work. Stay there. She stood up and walked away. Can I call later? No, just leave. Leave now. She grabbed her bag and ran out of the house. I got up, went into the living room, and made sure she was gone. Well, what about now? Oh yes, the little business of Dr. Wallace Prendergast, headmaster of St. Agricola's school. I returned and sat down at my computer again. With people like him, it doesn't take long to find out the truth. He grew up outside of Richmond, private schools, in Brighton, Massachusetts at William and Mary, Ph.D. in Georgia. Professionally, he began teaching history in a private school in Little Rock, then Memphis, then Mobile, and now here as a principal near his hometown of Richmond, always at the top of his game. He's come full circle. When I got back to work, I called Federal Express. I needed to send a package to the headmaster of St. Agricola School as soon as possible. Can they take something away? They said they would take care of it. Then I downloaded his exploits from yesterday with my wife. I printed 3 photos. Of course, his face was not visible, but that did not matter. In the note, I explained our surveillance system. I left him my phone number. By lunchtime, I knew Federal Express would handle everything. I called Zoe. Did you receive the materials? Yes, Curtis. I quickly skimmed through them. I'll look into them in more detail when I get home. I'm taking tomorrow off, so I'll have everything ready by the time you come over for dinner tomorrow night. She added softly, Curtis, I'm so sorry. I thought, why does she always have to sound so sincere? I sighed, about tomorrow evening. Wouldn't it be inconvenient for you if I came over tonight? I could almost feel her joy through the phone. I remembered her small mouth, those cherry red heart-shaped lips. Oh, of course, I'll take the rest of the day off. The kids will love it. So much time has passed. Maybe we could grill. I asked, "Does this old thing still work?" She replied, "You know that yes, you used it for Memorial Day." I remembered, that's right, Myra went to her graduation at St. Agricola and her graduation reception. I took Wayne to Zoe to be with all my kids. I told her, "Don't bother yourself." "No problem," she giggled. "I'll buy some ground beef and sausages. I'll make my signature potato salad and cabbage. I'll make them the way you like." I started to feel like sandpaper. Angry, like I wanted to hit someone, but sad and sentimental, like if I could just lay down and curl up somewhere, I'd be fine, but men don't act that way. Yes, I remember, I had a good day on Memorial Day Saturday, so good that I came back when Myra said she needed to spend the day at her store doing inventory. I should have hung up. "Don't bother." She sounded increasingly excited. "What time can we expect you? I want the children to be ready to meet Dad." Dad, I thought. No matter what, I'm still a dad who's something. I had a dad. I was Dad. Zoe found the right tone, but that was her specialty. Brandon, I started to get angry again. I said, "At 5 o'clock, I have to go." I hung up and sat there for a moment, staring at the phone and the photo on the table of me and Myra, our wedding photo. It could have been me and Zoe. I remembered. Zoe and I's big Methodist wedding, 300 people, non-alcoholic reception in the church social hall. Me and Myra, small civil ceremony, quiet dinner in a restaurant with a few close friends. Yes, despite everything, I was still someone to someone, 3, maybe 5. "Thanks, Zoe, for reminding me." Then I burst out. I started choking on tears, and once it started, I just couldn't stop. I continued to cough and hiccup while wiping away tears. I didn't cry. Men do not cry. With Wayne on her hip, our governess looked in. "Is everything okay, Dr. Carruthers?" I sat up and wiped my eyes. "Yes, thank you. Everything is fine." She looked at me with confusion and went back to what they were doing there. I walked over and closed the office door. As I cried, I thought, what's wrong with me? I need to pull myself together. Who was that? That old dead country singer Vern Gostin, yeah. I thought about what Vern sang. "This ain't my first rodeo." I kept telling myself, "You will get through this. You've been here before. It's not that important. Hell, it's not like you're alone. You have. Who the hell do I have? Well, there's Zoe. Why is she? Why is she now?" But I knew why. Nothing made sense. Bitch. I looked at my watch. It was still mid-morning. What was I going to do? I certainly didn't want to watch old videos from home. I didn't expect to find or need anything from there. What should I do? I think I might go outside. We have a small swimming pool. No, I went upstairs. I took an ice-cold shower. I took out old photographs, photographs of Myra, photographs of Zoya. Why did I save and hide all these old photographs of my first wife? I had our wedding photos. She was so beautiful, so small, all in white, in her mother's wedding dress. Blonde hair, blue eyes, white dress, little fairy princess, my fairy princess. My ideal. I had photos from our honeymoon, her pregnant again, another photo pregnant, 2 babies, 3 pregnancies. There were photographs of her in bed when we went to New York, her in a light blue peignoir that exactly matched the blue of her eyes. I bought it for her, and she showed it to me. That evening in New York, cats, it was a wonderful evening, satin sheets, a huge round bed, big thick pillows, she in the middle, batting her big luxurious eyes. Around 3:30 p.m., I realized that if I went to Zoe's, I would need to take Wayne, so I called her. "Zoe, is it okay if I bring Wayne with me?" She seemed out of her mind. "You're stupid, of course." What is wrong with me? This is Zoe. Why did I even ask? I put Wayne in a special bassinet in the back seat of my SUV and drove off. Several times I almost stopped. It wasn't fair to Zoe, but I didn't turn back. When I arrived at my old house, even before I pulled into the driveway, Diana and Keith were already running across the lawn. The lawn, my lawn, yes, I still mowed it. Small yard, only a manual lawn mower was required. I used the old Toro every Thursday afternoon, and like clockwork, Zoe was there in a tank top and short shorts with a lemonade in her hand. It was delicious on a hot day, and I got to see my kids another day. "Dad," Diana screamed. Keith was right behind her. "Daddy, Daddy." I stopped, turned off the engine, and jumped out just in time to be knocked down by my two older children. They were everywhere. Diana screamed and pulled me by the hand. "Come on, Mom has already started grilling. We will eat burgers and sausages." Keith shouted, "Yes, and Mommy bought the cake. You'll stay all night. Wow, we'll watch a movie. Let's make popcorn. I can't wait for tomorrow." Then they heard my youngest son gurgling and laughing from behind. Diana screamed, "You brought Wayne. Can I keep an eye on him?" Zoe left the house and walked down the driveway. She was wearing a summer dress that was too revealing and too short, which fluttered as she walked, showing a little more leg than necessary, and sandals on 2-inch heels that beautifully accentuated her slender but muscular calves and thighs. No wonder the dress was so loose-fitting. She screamed, "Kids, give Daddy a break." And as she got closer, she saw and heard Wayne. I cleaned out the kiddie pool. Tonight we will put him to bed in the old nursery. It's still settled. I looked at the gate leading to the backyard. We had a hammock. Sometimes, when the children fell asleep and the sun set, I lay in the hammock. She sat down next to him. I had to stop living in the past. "Curtis, the earth calls Curtis." She took my hand and kissed my cheek. I let her. Turning to Diana, she said, "Take Daddy inside so he can freshen up." She smiled at me, batting those damn eyes. She knew what she was doing. She babbled cheerfully, "I'll take Wayne." I felt a little, no, very strange, but pleasantly strange. I felt relieved, comfortable, as if I was at home, but I knew it wasn't. "Are you sure? I mean, is this normal?" "Oh, shut up. You know how much I love Wayne. He's so handsome." I reproached, "Boys are not beautiful." Zoe grinned and then sang, "You are beautiful." I felt myself turn pale. Listening to Zoe, I thought how when some women speak, after a while their voice becomes shrill and harsh. Like Margaret Hamilton in The Wizard of Oz, they get on my nerves. Myra sometimes sounded shrill. She laughed. Diana and Keith, each holding my hand, pulled me up the path. I had no choice. Zoe took Wayne and his bags and followed us. God, I came to this house every Wednesday and most Thursdays for 2 years, and we had them every other weekend, and it was always like that. I knew that most divorced men drag their kids to the movies and malls and stuff, but we had a pool in the backyard, and in the coldest weather, if it snowed, I would sometimes change the days. Someone had to clear the snow. Over time, it just made sense to come and stay. Zoe mostly left us alone. I mean when she wasn't cooking dinner or anything. I didn't stay the weekend. On weekends, I always took them to my house with Myra. After I had time to go to the restroom and wash my hands, Zoe pulled me out into the backyard and showed me the grill. "You bought a new one," I said. She smiled widely. "Do you like it?" It was very similar to our old one, so I knew how to handle it. Propane tank. "A new bottle," she answered cheerfully. "I'll go get some burgers and sausages." She turned to my older children, who would not let me go, and said, "Come on, you scoundrels. Let Dad fire up the grill. Diana, take Wayne." This was just the beginning. We cooked and ate burgers and sausages. We tucked into homemade cabbage, macaroni salad, potato salad, and then had one of my favorite treats, chocolate cake with ice cream. All this time the children laughed and played, all three. Wayne mostly gurgled and drooled. And Zoe, well, Zoe was herself. She could not or would not shut up. She constantly talked about everything, about children, neighbors, her parents, to the latest news about global climate change. Just watching her speak was a special pleasure. I had to stop thinking. After dinner, we all jumped in and out of the regular pool. Zoe wore a bikini, light blue of course, dark enough that it wasn't see-through, but light enough. I hated her. No, I didn't hate it. We played Marco Polo. I had to carry each of the kids to the deep end and let them dive in head first. It didn't matter that Diana and Keith were both strong swimmers. Head dipping was Daddy's job. We were so busy that I barely had time to think about anything. Later, when the sun was setting, we all returned to the house. The children were so tired that it was easy to persuade them to go to bed early. Zoe and I carried and helped all three of us up. We tucked Diana and Keith into their beds. We all prayed, the usual, "Now I lie down" prayer. Zoe put Wayne to bed in the nursery, and she and I finally had time to talk. The first thing she said, "You will sleep in our old bed. I sleep in the nursery with Wayne." I tried to object, but, "No, you need a good night's sleep for tomorrow," and I asked, "Why? What tomorrow?" She patted my hand. "Tomorrow is Wednesday, stupid, your normal day. The kids want you to take them to Busch Gardens. I couldn't tell them no." I understood what Keith meant when he mentioned tomorrow, but this. Zoe interrupted. "It's only a little over an hour away. Don't forget that tomorrow is Wednesday. It won't be so crowded." I replied, "It's always crowded there." She interrupted me again. "Everything will be okay." I said, "But we won't all fit in." She interrupted me again. "Dad lent us his van." Another surprise. I knew that her father hated me. "Your dad will give me." Again she interrupted me. "Oh God, Kurt, Dad isn't happy, but he's not crazy. He believes that what happened was at least partially, that is, mainly my fault." "Well, that's generous of him." Zoe looked at me with her pleading eyes like a Labrador. "I told him everything. He knows every detail. He knows more than anyone. He just wants us all to be happy. He wants you to be happy." I interrupted her. "Does he want to?" "He never approved of. You know, Brandon, and he thinks I was naive and empathic to the point of stupidity, and I was stupid for not listening to you about my medications." I started to get angry. "Well, you." Zoe looked away and sighed. "I wish I could," but then grabbed my wrist. "That's old news, Kurt. You know how sorry I am, but Dad and you, we all agree. You and I are connected for life. We have two wonderful children. They will be with us as long as we live. Regardless of whether we get back together or not, we will always be together because of them. My mom and dad love our children, and they will always love you for the gift you gave them." I've thought about this before, but I've never heard it put so warmly. "So off to Busch Gardens tomorrow." She smiled. "Yes, exactly." I had to ask, "What about what I sent you?" She took my right hand in two. "We will have enough time for this the day after tomorrow." Here I was with the first woman who ever betrayed me, the first woman I ever loved. Why did she have such a calming effect on me? Why is she? I replied, "Yes, listen, you're tired and I'm ready to collapse." She hugged my waist. "I took out some of your old panties. Do you think they'll fit?" I thought, why does she keep these old things? I replied, "I won't know until I try." We went into the house, Zoe into the nursery, and I into our old bedroom. When I got there, I found old underpants, an old worn-out white t-shirt with paint stains, some of my old cologne, a fresh razor, shaving cream, an old toothbrush, and all the supplies I needed. I cleaned myself up and lay down in our old double bed. I was so tired and so sad. All those old smells, old sensations, her smells. Why? Why did she do this? Zoe, why? I was ready to silently cry myself to sleep over things I didn't want to think about and didn't understand, but that didn't happen. 20 minutes after I turned off the light, I heard the soft rustle of someone's nightgown and the gentle steps of a child. "Dad?" I opened one eye. "Diana." "I cannot sleep." "Why? What happened?" "I need a fairy tale." I almost broke. but only almost. For God's sake, I haven't told a real bedtime story in almost 2 years. There were attempts when they were with me and Mayroy, but it didn't work. I wanted it to work. Myra wanted it to work. The kids wanted it to work. But no matter how hard she tried, Myra couldn't be Zoe. And now here I was in my old bed with my first, well, almost first, child. I remembered Zoe's first lost pregnancy. I found out she had a second one while we were apart. It is not my fault. I swear it's not my fault. I did not know. Diana climbed into bed with me. "Do you want something special?" I asked. She was about to answer when we heard a second whisper. "Daddy." "Whale, can I sleep with you tonight?" I opened the sheets so he could get in. I whispered I was going to tell Diana a story. He whispered back, "I know. Which one will you tell?" I thought, remember the one where the evil man tried to hurt Mom and how Super Dad fought him and saved her? I heard Diana reply, "Yes, tell it again, Dad." Keith, wanting to be a part, whispered, "Yeah, the one about the evil man." So I told them the old story about the bad man who wanted to hurt Mom and how Dad saved her. When I finished, I asked, "How am I?" I have not received a reply. They were both asleep. My stomach was twisted into a knot. I lay there and couldn't sleep almost all night. I went from blind rage to just nervous rage. I buried my head in the pillow. I couldn't afford to cry, not with my two older children in bed with me. But damn it, Zoe betrayed me. This was over 2 years ago, and I'm still so damn angry. I can barely restrain myself from strangling her. And now Myra has betrayed me, and of course it hurts, but it doesn't compare to Zoe's betrayal. Damn, I'm angry at Myra, and I will get revenge on her for her betrayal, but I will get over it. Damn, I'm starting to get over it, but that bitch Zoe, how could she? This is a real paradox. I have two houses. I feel like a dog with two houses. Before that, everything was fine with Myra, a good house, a good career, a wife striving for her dream, a charming little son. But before that, before this, I had heaven. Zoe, how I hate her. How many times have I come and felt? Well, felt like I was home, like a moth to a flame, and then only to remember, it's unfair. This is simply unfair. So I lay there. Damn it, how can I take revenge on Myra? Well, in something like cheating, there is no such thing as revenge. We know we had a problem. Wayne was born at the end of January. From January to April, Myra was able to stay at home and take care of him. Even though she didn't want the baby at first and grumbled and moaned throughout the pregnancy, she was a good mom. We opened her little bookstore at the end of April. Her dream was coming true, but we needed a governess. At the end of April and until the end of May, we went through hell screening young women. Thanks to Zoe's father, I had a decent and well-paid job. I taught at a college and was out from late morning until late evening, and then there were the usual evening meetings. Myra and I simply could not find someone to look after our child, but then luck smiled on us. We got lucky in late May when a girl returned from Virginia Tech. She was great, but what happens when her school starts at the end of August? It was just a few days later, we're back to where we started again. Myra and I vowed, no kindergartens, not enough personal attention. I had to think of something. When I looked at the morning clock, the only logical answer came to my mind. I was already paying child support for Diana and Keith, and Zoe was only working part-time. When the school year starts, will Zoe agree to give up her job to care for Wayne? What will Myra say? This was an opportunity. I'll ask. I'll ask Zoe today. Diana and Keith woke me up first, then Zoe. By 9 o'clock in the morning, we went to Busch Gardens. The drive there and back was like a Norman Rockwell painting. Excited and excited all the way there, tired and uncomfortable all the way back, but oh, how wonderful it was in between. Between the kids and Zoe, I didn't have a moment to think about my other problem. All four of them just took over my life. We rode roller coasters, ate junk food, rode again, ate more junk food, and then we all felt sick. I had the best time of my life. At least that's what it seemed like. I was a little afraid that Zoe might try to seduce me, but that didn't happen. She played the role of a caring mom to Wayne, a fun playmate to Diana and Keith, and a supportive friend to me. I liked it. I appreciated it. On the way back, back to my first house, I casually asked a question. Zoe, can I ask you a question? Of course, whatever. What happened? Well, Myra has her bookstore now, and I get to teach and write and... You need a nanny. Well, sort of, I guess. I mean, finding a good governess is not so easy during the school year, and after a long day in the sun, going on rides and stuff, my hair was greasy and frizzy, and I admit that it was always a little shaggy. Zoe reached out and used her fingers to tuck the most unruly strands behind my right ear. It felt nice. I felt a shiver. As she stretched, I got a good look at the curve of her breasts through her short sleeve. I quietly watched her all day. Her armpit was damp with sweat. She saw how I looked at her and at myself. She smiled. I blushed. She sang softly, "You don't need to ask. Diana and Keith are already at school. Bring Wayne in the morning. I can handle this as long as it takes." Afraid to look at her, I continued to look at the road ahead. I need to talk to Myra. When you talk, tell her that if she wants, I'd be happy to take Wayne to the store this afternoon, and we could share babysitting duties, or if she wants to rest, she could come to my house and we could have lunch together. Then I turned to her. Involuntarily, I blurted out, "You are the best, Zoe." Damn, I thought, why did I say that? She ran her finger over my face. I felt the trembling again. "You deserve." Hey, carefully. I was so into her that I lost concentration. A truck in front of us slowed down, and I almost hit it. "Jesus," I said, "that was close." Zoe turned on the radio, and we listened to country music the rest of the way home. Country music. In this music, there is always someone having, getting, or overcoming a broken heart. House. House. When we got back, Zoe told me, "I'll finish what you sent me." She touched my wrist. "From what I saw, I don't think you'll be much relieved." As I got into my SUV for the last leg of the drive home, where I lived with Myra, I replied, "No, I don't think so." With a sullen Wayne in the back seat, I drove away. It was a sad end to a wonderful day. Over the next few days, I developed my strategy. It was painful. Painful because Zoe sent me content that I should have seen. Luckily, Myra saved me from having to look through the material from home, as she told Wallace at the very beginning that she would never bring him home. They could meet at his office, bookstore, or make an appointment somewhere else, but she would never receive him at our home. Except, she said, it really lit the fire. I have to give Wallace credit. He was good as any deceiver I ever met, and I have met several. All my life, I will never understand such people. He had money, a better education, he came from a good Anglo-Saxon Protestant family, and he had a wonderful wife. He had everything. I think a sense of entitlement went hand in hand with its benefits. It started working almost immediately. That first conversation sealed the deal for him, her, and my decision to divorce her. It was terrible to watch. It all started right in the store, a few days before the end of the school year, even before that graduation party she mentioned. Like I said, he was good for a reason. He walked in and took over his territory from the start. "Hello, I am Dr. Wallace Prendergast, headmaster of the school at St. Agricola. I heard that someone opened a bookstore here. How are you doing?" And my wife, she opened up immediately. "I just opened up a couple of days ago. I haven't had my first client yet." He smiled, I thought. What snow-white teeth. I wonder how much they cost. He said, "Then let me be your first client. Do you have any Zane Grey?" My wife looked stunned. Zane Grey, Western writer. He laughed. "My therapy. All day long it is this or that, now a trustee, now a teacher, now a politician, now a parent. Old Westerns transport me to another time and place." My wife nodded. I could see that she was impressed. I had to admit that he looked handsome in his tailored suit, Crisp white shirt, bow tie, school colors. She said, Zane Grey. No, but I have some Francis Bret Harte books. The expression on her face? Hope. Wallace smiled. Ah, Exiles of Poker Flats, excellent book. Do you have a copy? My wife nodded again. Yeah, I think I have one. She turned and walked to the nearest row. He stopped her. No, don't worry. I already read it. I have my own copy, but let me write this down. He took out a small notepad and pen. He began to write something. I will pass this on to our history teachers. Do you have a philosophy? Myra nodded again. Yes, a small section. Want to. Again, he stopped her. He looked at his watch. Not now. I have an appointment, I think, with the municipal councilor. He hesitated for just a second. Hey, listen, I have an idea. I'll check with the school, get feedback from my teachers. Maybe we could meet later, say tomorrow or the day after. Do not hurry. We could discuss what my people are asking their students this fall. Maybe we could talk over dinner. My wife beamed. Yes, she took a business card from the counter. Here is my business card with my number. He took the card. Delightful, Mrs. A. Mrs. Carruthers, Myra Carruthers. I saw my killer smile warmly. Myra, Myra, how poetic. It means the world as far as I know. Originally a Greek name, but it was Fulk Greville, a 16th century poet who admired Elizabeth I, a truly noble character. He wrote this name first. And look at you, your graceful face, your thick brown hair, so modest. There is something of Elizabeth in you. I looked at the hypocrite as he reproached himself. Oh, sorry, I got carried away. Please don't think. Don't feel insulted. My wife's eyes, even from the screen, I saw her pupils dilate. Wide open with admiration, she purred, barely audible. No, no, not at all. Then the bastard took my wife's hand in his fingers. I'll call, soon. My wife's response, I'll be here. I do not remember my wife's behavior that night, but I noticed a change in her mood soon after. She became, as it were, dreamy, ephemeral. Now I know why. I have no idea what happened in the next 2 weeks, but I remember it was Flag Day when I saw his first success. I remember now because my wife came home, bypassing Wayne and the governess, and immediately took a shower. The film confirmed this. He had sex with her in the storeroom. My wife, my faithful, loving, devoted wife, found her iPhone and called me. She wanted to know if we could have dinner that evening. I remember it well because I suggested Red Lobster, and as strange as it may seem, it was that evening that I first formally met Dr. Wallace Prendergast. He brought his wife. It's sickening to think about it now, 2 co-conspirators having sex at work, sharing their dirty secret in front of their unsuspecting spouses. Of course, the 4 of us ate together. He was charming. My wife was depressed. In fact, I think she was being a little obsequious, like a highly paid woman of easy virtue in the presence of her boss, with her head down, minimal eye contact, giving minimal comments. I remember how much I liked him then. He insisted on taking the bill. Now, looking back, I think he was trying to show some kind of claim on my wife, as if saying, "Look at me, I bought you." That night, of course Myra and I made love, or at least I did. I didn't and still don't have the slightest idea who or what she was thinking about. Did or does it matter? No more. Future meetings at the bookstore followed the same stupidly routine pattern. He came. They went and had sex. He was leaving. She called me at home. Later, when she came home, she was especially affectionate, and that night we made love. All this happened with clockwork precision until the day I caught her. I have never heard honeyed words or references to books from the scoundrel. After their sessions, he regularly passed on a comment or two about me, but his remarks were always stupid, trivial, and really quite ordinary. He never attempted to make or obtain any comparisons. He never offered anything social. Everything was always the same hackneyed, thoughtless set of comments. Sorry, but now I think I understand that this was part of his formula. It made sense. He kept her hooked, giving her a small dose of excitement, accompanied by the subconscious implication that I, her husband, was insipid and boring. Tragically, it worked. Even more tragically, I think this is what Myra wanted. So I watched the videos that Zoe had selected and then started making my plans. Interestingly, I had two women on my hook for a while. Myra wandered around the house like a ghost, watched, eavesdropped, secretly rummaged through papers in my office. I was mostly polite. Her shame was no reason for me to stoop to her level. Oh no, I'll have something for Myra. I didn't know what it would be, but it would be. I don't know if it's meaningful. It was heartbreaking. The Myra I thought I knew had died, and her replacement was like a two-dimensional shadow, some wounded animal. I once ran over a young squirrel with a mower when I was a kid. I immediately saw that the poor creature was likely to die. She didn't run away. She jumped a couple feet away from the mower and just sat there. I got down and approached her. I had a dog, a yellow Labrador, and she also came along. The two of us, me and the dog, walked right up to this little squirrel. She was so close, and it was obvious that she was hurt. I thought about taking her home and trying to help, but her behavior was so unusual, she could be mad. The sad little creature didn't move, so I gently nudged her. The dog and I watched as she limped towards the trees. She even looked back once, or so it seemed to me. I knew she would die. Watching Myra in the house, I remembered that squirrel. She was pathetic, and forgive me, I'm not one for torment. But Zoe was completely different. It was stupid. I've known Zoe most of my life. Except for that terrible time, I could still read her like an open book. I knew what she wanted. While Myra was gloomy, pale, despondent, constantly expecting the worst, Zoe was lively, light, airy, fluttering like a hummingbird, full of sweetness. Of course, once the school year began, it was only a matter of time before both women lost patience and began their final push. Myra was the first. I thought I knew what Myra would do, but, well, women. On the second day of the third week of school, I returned home at the usual time. Zoe usually picked Wayne up around 6. Myra returned a little after 8. I returned home that afternoon to find Myra waiting in the kitchen. I expected this. Sooner or later, I thought she would want to have that conversation. She was dressed in a very beautiful suit, a skirt and blouse. She was always so neat and correct. That's one of the things that attracted me to her. As a quiet, introverted librarian, Myra was the opposite of the bubbly, extroverted Zoe. Hard to believe. Was this supposed to be a historical seduction scene? I walked in and sat down, and she started, "Curtis, I'm so lonely. I feel so lost and helpless. It's not about sex. I just feel so empty. Are you here? I see you every evening. I want you. I want you to hug me. I'm not talking about sex. I just need your arms around me. I know I don't deserve anything. I know I'm on the edge, but at least something, maybe a hello, a little affection. I was wrong. What I did was disgusting, but I feel so lost, so dried out, like I was scraped out from the inside." I was surprised. I said nothing. She continued, "Kurt, it's my fault. I'm guilty like the worst Judas. I don't deserve anything. I know my time is running out. When the end comes, I will not resist. I'll go quietly, but now at least have some mercy. Could you show the woman of easy virtue a little mercy?" She was right. She was disgusting. She played the role of a woman of easy virtue. She betrayed me in the worst way. She didn't deserve anything, but I knew I had to give in this time. It was an easy decision. She was still my wife, and when her comeuppance came, it would be on my terms. She lowered her head into her hands on the table. I stood up, walked around the table. I took her chin in my hands and whispered, "When Zoe leaves." She grabbed my hands and held them. She wiped the tears with her right eye on the back of my hand. Holding back a sob, she whispered, "Thank you, Kurt." Her head was pressed against my hand, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. In that brief moment, I wanted to find a way to forgive and forget about Prendergast and her betrayal. But this could not happen. I was mourning a dead animal. That evening was wonderful, sad, but still warm and wonderful. Although it's only been a few weeks, I almost forgot about her and Prendergast. Damn, There were no mental pictures, nothing worthwhile memorization. I can't say she had much interest in sex. This was Zoya's kingdom. There was something else. Myra knew Zoe wanted me. I think Myra sensed Zoe was getting closer. I saw it, fear. Zoe had 2 children, and now she had Wayne. Zoe absorbed the best parts of Myra's life, and she knew it. Was it bothering me? No, not really. I liked it. One lived in her fantasies, the other in fear. From that first night until the very end, we enjoyed each other every 3 to 4 days. It helped me, taking the pressure off, and I know it helped Myra. I think it gave her the last bit of confidence before. Well, before the end. She never asked, and I never offered. She knew that her fate was near. The sword was always there, always right above her head. To be honest, I still cared about her, but there was no future in it. Zoe was different. I knew she wanted it. Even after 2 years, she still wore her rings. She loved sex. I knew that after our breakup and divorce, she stayed away from men. She could have any man she wanted. Her problem was that she only wanted one thing, but I still had to hate her for what she did. Those morning hours when I dropped Wayne off, Diana and Keith were already at school, and she was there, waiting. She started when school started, and almost every day she did the same trick. She was all dressed up in some kind of tight jumpsuit. She was small, but damn, what a figure she had, eyes like heaven, lips like cherry wine. It wasn't easy, but I fought her off every time. Damn it, Zoe, you know I'm a one-woman man, which means one woman at a time. She stuttered back. But you're leaving her. I know you're leaving. I laughed. You're out of luck. I was yours once. You missed it, so go and put something on. Once she came up to me with her fists, but I held her back. Finally giving up, she shouted, "You know where to find me." I grinned. We'll see. Then she cried, and I just almost gave up, wondering, how can one woman make one man so angry? It was a difficult time for me. With my new fall schedule, I was home before noon, and I knew Zoe was always available. It would be so easy to take one of those little onesies off her shoulders and carry her into the living room or upstairs. She wanted me, and I craved. No, I missed her, but. Few men turned down a free piece, and she was a delicious piece, but it was part of the game I was playing. What a game. So time moved forward, and with it my plans. My number one goal, a certain principal of a certain private school. I had videos. Did I have a wife who would swear to anything if it would save anything from our marriage, or was it her little bookstore? What did Prendergast have? He had a wife. He had a prestigious job. He had a career, and unfortunately for him, he had a huge ego. Plus, he knew I was coming for him. His visits to the bookstore stopped, but orders from school increased. Other schools, even 1 or 2 colleges, began sending orders. What a fool he was. I had Myra, and through her he was in my hands. Still, he was not one to flinch. I knew he would never call. At the end of September, I sent him my first letter. Not really a letter, just another envelope. In the envelope are several additional photographs, more candid photographs. I received a call. What do you want? Let's have lunch. Where? Red Lobster. We met in the first week of October. I ordered crab legs. He ordered shrimp. He asked again, what do you want? I told him, I want you to disappear. What? Disappeared as soon as he left the city. You can leave. Take your wife. Find another job, no scandal, just goodbye. Is it that simple? He asked. I said, it's as simple as that. He moved away from the table. That won't happen. This is my hometown. Let me make another suggestion. You will throw away the films, and I will not expose your wife as a real woman of easy virtue. I was surprised. Of course not, I asked. Is Weldon Zimmerman the head of the board of trustees? He grinned. So what? He already knows. He's at one with me. He then paused and smirked. Besides, do you think I was her first? I smiled and stood up. See you soon. He took the check and also stood up. Next time you pay. I sent Zimmerman the full video. He got it all, color cinema with live sound. I got the call and found myself back at Red Lobster. This time with Weldon Zimmerman. He ordered lobster. I stayed with crab legs. He started first. I received your video. You know, this is Wallace's hometown. He has roots here. I smiled. Me too, and my wife. He continued to smile. He looked like a snake. I thought, where do they find people like this? He said, Dr. Carruthers, we can work this out. Wallace is a good man. You can't do this to him because of some stupid affair. I smiled again. You have visual proof that this was not just a stupid fling, and yes, I can. You know what else? I can get you. I can get into your school, St. Agricola. He asked, is this money? Do you want money? Money? I grinned. Are you kidding? I want justice. He replied, justice? Do you call destroying a person's life and career just? I replied, I want him, you and your precious school. He stared at me. I didn't blink. He stood up and took the check. Give me a day or two. I replied, of course. Was I surprised? Not really. I thought the old man might give in, but St. Agricola is a rich school with a long tradition and a large fund. They had lawyers. They had connections with the municipal council. They probably, yes, I knew, they had judges. What was my next step? Go to one of their judges before one of their lawyers comes after me. There was an elderly federal judge in the old city, a graduate of St. Agricola. No pictures, no videos this time, just a letter. I made an appointment and made a personal visit. He knew I was coming, and from the letter and presumably from the requests, he knew why. His name was Robert Driscoll. This time there was no food. I was supposed to see him in the reception room outside his office. I went in and sat down. He kept me waiting. Was I surprised? Hell no. It was part of the program. Finally, he entered. Dressed in his priest's robes, he walked up and shook my hand. Good afternoon, I'm Judge Driscoll, and you? Dr. Curtis Carruthers. He pretended to be stupid. And the reason for your visit? You are a graduate of St. Agricola. Your school has a principal who has committed adultery. He seduced and used my wife, and I want him fired. The judge looked grim. There are procedures for this. Have you hired a lawyer? I was hired. Yes, sir, I was hired. Can I ask who? No, you can't, but I'll tell you he's done this before. You have a mercenary marksman. No, sir, I have a lawyer. So are you ready to go all the way in this matter? I replied, yes, sir, I am, and if I need to take the next step, I will visit a few more people. I handed him a piece of paper. He looked at it. Do you know who these people are? I replied, they are donors there. There are several people from the church. There's a congressman there. They are all very generous. Are you threatening something, sir? No, sir. I just want justice for my wife. He examined the paper I gave him. Can I call you back? My number is on paper. He stood up. Thank you for your interest in St. Agricola. My secretary will call you with something in a few days. We shook hands. I said, thank you, Your Honor, and we parted. I went home. He went to court. I received a call from Weldon Zimmerman on the last day of the week. I would like to see you again. Red Lobster? I asked. No, at school. Tomorrow, say, at 9 a.m. It sounded good. I thought, Saturday is school. I wonder what will happen next. I had already been back and forth throughout September, and this was towards the end of October. They knew for sure that I had not filed for divorce and had not seen or heard of any videos other than those I had already distributed. Would they risk their school's reputation for some womanizer, some cheap Casanova? I think I'll find out. We met at one of the college prep team's offices. It was just me and Mr. Zimmerman. He began. First of all, let me say that I am very sorry about what happened. I'm sorry your wife was dragged into this. This is all very sad, a tragic misunderstanding. I realized then that he knew that I had hired a private investigator. I guess they hired one too. I learned that Myra was not Prendergast's first victim. Zimmerman and I both knew this. My hunch was that if this had been Prendergast's one-off, they would have fought me, but the man was a serial traitor. I asked, "So where are we?" He replied, "It's complicated. Dr. Prendergast is a very successful and respected man. He is famous. He has sponsors. He has a wife who has taken on a leadership role in philanthropic and social causes. You could give us a break, let's say until Christmas. The fall semester ends in January. This will give us time to find his successor. Plus, he will have time to find another position." I replied, "My wife, she is unwell. It was very difficult for her." He replied, "I understand. If you need counseling, we can help. But there is also a school. We would like some assurance that once Dr. Prendergast leaves, there will be no consequences." I felt it was almost over. I leaned back in my chair. I had a few things pending, but I put them aside. For some time, I thought about taking over the entire school for ransom. My lawyer mentioned something about moral issues and the school threatening a lawsuit or something like that. I immediately rejected it. I was a college professor and didn't want to jeopardize my own reputation. I thought from the very beginning about free training. With Diana, Keith, and someday Wayne all gearing up for high school, why not squeeze a little out of them? But then I studied the results of their program. Despite all the expense and prestige of St. Agricola, their SAT scores were no better than those of the top public schools. The only advantage of the St. Agricola diploma was the contacts it provided, and contacts did not seem to be a problem for me. I reassured the son of a bitch, "I have no interest in ruining the reputation of your fine school, but as I said, my wife. She needs more than counseling. At least she needs some support." He looked puzzled. He really didn't understand, so I said, "My wife's bookstore." He understood. He smiled. "Contract. We will need a contract. I am confident that we can significantly alleviate your wife's suffering." With this, everything was decided. I stood up. That's what I was hoping for. He also stood up. I waited and added, "Will there be a Christmas party? Farewell?" He nodded and ended our conversation. "There will be 2 agreements, some assurances from you, something like a non-disclosure agreement, and an overall contract from, say, 5 schools and the college you mentioned for, say, 3 years. Can we agree to this?" I said, 5 years. He replied, 5 is 5. I added, "My wife and I will be happy if we can attend this party." He grinned, "You will sit at my table." We shook hands. I got into my SUV and drove away. I won, or so I thought. I waited to review the agreements. Of course, I didn't look at them. I had a lawyer for this. Prendergast will be gone by January, and the 5-year agreement was more than generous. Who knew what Myra would be doing in 5 years, and for private schools, with their staff turnover, 5 years is a lifetime. It's time to settle accounts with Myra. I had all of October, November, and most of December to deal with Myra, come to an agreement on what to do about custody of Wayne, and then there was Zoe and my older children. Sure, I had a good income, and there might even have been royalties somewhere, but with payments on 2 houses, alimony, and child support, I knew I had to come to some kind of agreement. Plus, Halloween and Thanksgiving were approaching. I had been blacklisted by Zoe's parents for 2 years now, and my parents, after my first divorce, weren't happy with me either. It will be a busy season. I never regretted divorcing Zoe. She deserved it. But both sets of parents never saw it that way, and worse, her parents blamed me for her second pregnancy loss. Well, I didn't know she was pregnant, so they couldn't pin it on me. It was her infidelity, not mine. Her infidelity. I saw it, and she saw it as I saw it. So what was the need for marriage or reconciliation counseling? And listen to her whine and cry with a bunch of pathetic excuses. It wasn't in my nature. Hell, my insurance covered her grief counseling and medication, and when I returned from my trip, I helped with the kids. I helped right up to and even after, especially after I married Myra. No, I didn't owe Zoe anything. She owed me. About the fact that I returned that morning, found her, and left. I didn't run away, I just went about my business. I worked hard. That was my PhD, the grand prize. I was assigned to a month-long trip to Greece and Turkey to study archaeological sites firsthand. This trip was supposed to be the icing on the cake, my ticket to greatness, my path to an Ivy League university. So I stayed away a little longer than I should have, maybe a little too long. So I did some things I shouldn't have done. So I ruined everything. But it was her fault. However, as they said when I returned, the train had left. So what? Zoe, Myra. Myra, Zoe. What was it? Who was that? Was it me? When I returned from the trip, I had a long talk with my father. For my brother and me, our father has always been a source of wisdom. However, I mostly disagreed with him, especially regarding Zoe. Zoe visited my parents while I was away. She put a fair amount of pressure on them. While I was finalizing the divorce, I agreed to listen to her lying story. The guy I found in bed with her was familiar to me. He grew up nearby and even dated her from time to time when they were in college. He was a semi-serious artist with a studio who taught some prime classes at a state art school. This guy is good, too good. Why are lovers always like this? They always have the right words, the right manners, all this, and the right interest. This one had it all: sophisticated, warm, sensitive character, proper, loose clothing, just the right amount of facial hair, appropriate fashionable spontaneity, comforting, gentle, persuasive manner of speaking. Spontaneity, that's what it was, what he had. He had spontaneity. He always knew what to say and how to say it. He should have been a used car salesman. And Zoe. Well, Zoe has always been a walking advertisement for Simp of the Month. That's what drew me to her. She loved everyone, saw the good in everything and everyone. I admit I was a little judging sometimes, a little hot spur. I see a problem, I go straight to the source, right by the throat. Zoe, no, not her, she always figured it out. She saw all sides of any issue. To her, everyone had a different point of view, never just black and white, always shades of gray. So that's it. Zoe, warm and caring, and the scoundrel, classic user. Add in Zoe's secret pregnancy and her very real anemia. I know I gave her medicine every morning. I know I did it that morning. I did. I know I didn't let my excitement about the trip distract me. No, this couldn't happen. I haven't forgotten. Her medications were not my responsibility. Not really. Not exactly. She was taking several types of medications. Anyone who has ever looked knows that there are dozens of brands of tablets and tonics for iron and hormone deficiencies. I watched. I even checked for side effects. Some medications have had negative effects during the first trimester of pregnancy. I didn't know she was pregnant. She didn't tell me. Only later did she admit that she hid it because she didn't want me to worry while I was away. Lying bitch. She also lied. And medicines. She could check the side effects herself. She didn't have to rely on me for everything. It is not my fault. I'll give her credit for the second pregnancy loss and subsequent depression. She never blamed me, not once, ever. Throughout that winter and spring before my trip, I researched, took online classes, and learned Turkish and Farsi. The trip was supposed to be a big step for Zoe and me. It was the completion of many years of work, a direct bridge to something truly meaningful professionally. This was our ticket to the Ivy League. Zoe knew this. I'm sure she was lying, lied about the guy. She knew that if I thought she was pregnant, I would postpone the trip, and then she would not have time for her lover. I told my father. I knew I was right. I told him I was right. He said I was wrong. He took her side. My father sided with the lying cheater. Okay, I let her tell me her lies. I let her tell her pitiful story. She was lousy too. Being anemic, she feels tired, kind of like daydreaming sometimes. All this has something to do with periodic hyperactivity of the spleen in combination with the same changeable shifts in hormonal activity. She could be active, excited, cheerful, and then slow, lethargic, almost like in a dream. I saw it in her. It could be disturbing, but sometimes I thought she was faking it to get attention. She said that her boyfriend used to come over when I was not at home. He came at night when I was teaching or busy at a seminar. He would come during the day when I was at school, doing research and writing. She said he must have been keeping an eye on my schedule. Okay, I could agree with that. I'm basically a creature of habit. Aren't we all like that? She said he always found ways to be there when the children were at school or asleep, or sometimes brought something, a game or something to keep the children occupied. He always had a reason to be there, to help. She said he was comforting, spoke so softly, was so calming, so comfortable and helpful. He showed her his works of art. That morning, she said, without medication, she must have dozed off. He must have carried her upstairs. He must have just started when I approached the bedroom door. She said that my appearance frightened her. This woke her up, but it was too late. She swore and swore that nothing had happened before. Never, never. She said he must have planned it that day, knowing I wouldn't be around. She said that after I left, she had never cried so much in her life. She cried for days, but I was not there, not at all. She said she just collapsed. Then she lost our child. They say she tried to take her own life. Her parents had to bring a nurse, someone who would be with her day and night to keep an eye on her and take care of the children. This I knew for sure was true. I guess I'll never know. I know I hate her. No, I can't say that. It's not that kind of hatred. But there was also Myra. What I said about Myra doesn't quite tell her story, at least its early history. Myra told me that her first husband was some kind of athlete, or rather, almost an athlete. Football was his passion in college, and I guess he got too caught up in practicing, planning, and hoping. She said he was a good quarterback at his Division Roman III college, but nowhere near good enough for the NFL. He tried out as an independent player, but failed, tried out for another team, and failed again. This sent him into a downward spiral. Myra, the introverted, sensitive, classic caregiver, allowed her rescue mentality to kick in. The marriage didn't work out. Her husband, too aggressive, too angry, too narcissistic, could not accept failure and would not accept help. From what I heard, failure on the field translated into failure in the workplace. He snapped, and Myra became his most convenient target. From what I heard, he deteriorated, and then she degraded. Towards the end, he turned into a real brute. I thought I saw this part. Myra and I. How did it start? I was teaching an evening course in English composition, and Myra signed up. I noticed her, and since I was in the final throes of divorce and professional failure, I decided to make a friend. I tried to make eye contact. She didn't react. To make matters worse, she started in the back rows, but moved closer to the front. She rarely volunteered, but was always prepared with reading and homework. One evening, I noticed that she came home late and was in a terrible mood. After the lesson, I asked her to stay. We talked a little about, oddly enough, Cleopatra Roman VII, consort of Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. She loved classic history, read a recent bestseller, and was fascinated by the life story of an ancient Egyptian queen. Somewhere along the way, she mentioned that she had recently separated from her husband. I convinced her to have a late coffee, and that's where it all started. It wasn't love at first sight, but she was very beautiful and an interesting conversationalist. After a few coffee breaks after class, I talked her into going on a date, but when I came to pick her up, she wasn't where we agreed. She lived on the third floor in an old group of garden apartments. She should have been outside, but she wasn't. I got up and found her door ajar. I walked in and found her curled up in the corner. Then she told me about her ex-husband. I knew he wasn't someone I wanted to get involved with, so I did the smart thing, persuaded Myra to obtain a restraining order. This slowed him down, but he didn't just disappear. There was another incident, but with some encouragement, she called the police. A report was filed, and that was almost the end of the first husband. However, I had a problem with Myra. What's wrong with Myra? We met by chance. We started dating. I found out about her cheating, abusive husband, but Zoe said something and Myra's first husband said something too. Zoe said I should remember the story of the African hunter who killed the lion. How he described the ferocity of the lion and how he almost died killing it. Zoe reminded me that the lion had a story too, a story the hunter never told. a story I might want to know. Then Myra's first husband said something. He said that now that she is mine, she is no longer his headache. I never asked him what he meant. I think it's time to find out. I reconnected with a detective I used to get information about the school principal. I asked him to find the address of Myra's first husband. It turned out to be easy. He still lived in the area. I decided to visit him. Myra's first husband was Jerry Battaglia. He had something to say. We agreed to meet at the local Denny's. Over eggs and pancakes, I learned the story of the lion. I asked him, "So what happened between you and Myra?" He replied, "First, I want you to understand that I loved her very much, and I probably still do, but now I am married to a good girl. We started a family and everything is fine with me. I think about Myra sometimes, but she's strictly in my rear mirror. I don't want any problems." I told him, "She and I are still living together, but I'm going to divorce her because of infidelity." He said, "It's sad. I had the same thing." I said, "Wait a minute. Wait, she said you cheated on her and she had to leave." That's when another story came out. First of all, he said, "I never cheated. It was Myra who broke the relationship." Considering the director, I wasn't entirely surprised. That's what Jerry told me. He met Myra in college through a mutual friend, another football player. As he said, Myra was not a woman of easy virtue. She was just easy. She had her own dreams, and one of them was to marry someone who would bring her fame. She saw herself as the wife of some NFL or NBA superstar. Black, white, yellow, she didn't care. The main thing was attention, enjoying the reflected glory of everyone's idol. He explained that all the boys loved her, not for sex, but for her personality, pleasant nature, and how she could boost a man's ego. But she missed the fact that they were attending a Division Roman III college. Jerry admitted that he also missed it or hid it. When he wasn't chosen, he tried anyway, but it didn't work out. Of course, he was disappointed, but his disappointment was nothing compared to hers. He said she began to humiliate him, not in big things, but in little things. At parties or any time they went out, she always reminded him of the failure, of how he had let her down. Jerry admitted that he took it to heart, but moved on with his life. He found a job at a local insurance agency. He was determined to climb the corporate ladder. He said he worked hard, but that meant nights spent selling policies. He came home exhausted. Myra never worked. She sat at home and waited. Eventually, he said, she got bored. She needed to get out. Sometimes he came home and she was gone. It didn't take long to figure it out. She was on a search again. She needed this holy grail. Unfortunately, there were men who were ready to fill her head with promises, but there always had to be some kind of quiddy about the quo. The first time he found her in a nice restaurant. The second time the restaurant wasn't so good, and the third time she was hanging out at a bar. He walked in and she acted as if he was not her husband. She introduced him as her friend. So there he stood, her friend, loser husband. They, not he, were all laughing and chatting. One of the guys went too far with her, so Jerry said he grabbed her wrist and pulled. She didn't resist, but she didn't help either. As he pulled, the guy hit him. He missed and hit her instead. She came home but moved out a few days later while he was at work. Through it all, he said he still loved her. He wanted to make peace. He found out that she had started attending my evening classes. He tried to reconcile, but she didn't want to. He said that was around the time I showed up. By then, he had reached his breaking point, tried to see her again, found her dressed up and ready to go out. He lost control. He destroyed her apartment, but never hit her. He made it clear that he would never lay a hand on her. A few days later, he was notified of the injunction. Even then, he tried to see her again. She left a message telling him to leave her alone, that she had found someone else. Then he said he gave up. I told Jerry my story. He said he wasn't surprised. He listened and thought that she had switched from star athlete to great scientist. It made sense, but my problems with Zoe ruined my academic dreams. Jerry said Myra must have realized this and began planning her next move. She already had a store, Wallace would be the director. What could be better? I agreed, but only up to a certain point. I doubted it was Wallace, more likely the store. I came to the conclusion that the store was most important, more important than me, our marriage, Wayne, everything. About Jerry's story, I half believed what he said, but it was enough. To make matters worse, I got rid of one headache and jumped straight into another. Moreover, Myra's alibi for me matched the alibi she gave to Jerry. She was a sick puppy. It was time to leave. But I had 3 children. I had obligations. There were my father and mother. What would they say? It wasn't just my needs. I was raised to be a man, and a man takes care of his people, all of his people. There was no easy way out. I had to solve many problems. Okay, I decided to play to the end with Myra. I thought that with her past, she would probably move on soon, always in search of that golden fleece. But Zoe, what about her? Since Zoe's expenses took up most of the money, she had to be my first order of business. But this led to another little problem. What really happened to Brandon? I needed to see her. I forgot how difficult, and at the same time simple everything was with her. We never had that quarrel, that cruel, terrible, bloody showdown that I diligently avoided. I knew this was going to happen, but I knew I needed to control my anger, but I needed to know the truth. I could never do that to her. No, of course not. The girl was not healthy. She had her own needs, but I knew what I was doing. Of course, I had a strong desire to crush her, and I will crush her. But it was more than that. She was right when she said we were more connected than I would ever be with Myra. There was even more. Zoe was not like everyone else. Zoe was a naturally weak person, weak in ways not easily described. She loved children, loved having them, but she lost a child twice, and both Diana's and Keith's pregnancies were nerve-wracking times with Mom lying down most of the time. Worse, her losses were physiologically and emotionally devastating. I was there during the first and its aftermath, but I mocked her suffering. It was my shame. But Zoe was weak. Weak in communication skills with people. I mean weak in the ability to see people for who they really are. She was an only child. I can't say her parents were much older, but to them Zoe was that wonderful gift they thought they would never receive. Result, they devoted all their time, money, everything they had to her. To say that she was spoiled would be a mistake. She was treated like a beloved pet. Never scolded, never severely punished, always the center of attention, but somehow she still managed to grow into the wonderful person I met. And then there was Brandon. Brandon was very similar to Prendergast, a schemer and manipulator. My concern was not so much how far this rogue had gone. My concern was how much Zoe would admit. Zoe loved me, she would have done anything for me, but she was fragile and emotionally needy. Looking back, I believed that before things went wrong, I was a good provider, but not much of a caretaker, hence the opportunity for Brandon. My career and ego were pulling me in one direction when she desperately needed me to be somewhere else. Well, her weakness and my big plans have turned everything into nothing, so maybe it's time for me to turn my attention to major responsibilities. Now it's time to be a husband, a father, a provider, and last, but not least, a big academic superstar. I felt like I had to do it, even if it meant more pain, pain for her and for me. There was no reason to punish Zoe anymore. Moreover, I had to face my own demons. I needed her too. She satisfied something in me that I just couldn't explain. Maybe it was the feeling of a heroic husband and super dad. Who knew? What have I already done? It was easy. I was in and out of my first house all the time. I installed cameras in the master bedroom and kitchen. I activated the app on her iPhone. Yes, she had been celibate since we separated, and I had proof. I've thought of everything. Zoe was supposed to be Hector to my Achilles. My dream marriage was my Patroclus, and her infidelity killed him. Of course, Hector killed Patroclus by mistake. Was Zoe's infidelity the same? It doesn't matter. It's my responsibility to hold her accountable. I will crush it, destroy it, but like Achilles in the end, I will return the defeated Hector to his family. I won't just trample and trample and trample. I called and told her what I wanted. She agreed. I waited until Myra came home, and then went to her. It was past 10 p.m. The children were sleeping. She met me at the door, fully prepared, dressed in a soft, loose, transparent jumpsuit. It was, as always, a pale blue color that matched her eyes perfectly. She had all her other armor on. Pale blue eyeshadow, soft pink lip gloss, hair combed and styled just the way I liked it, manicured fingernails and toenails, the right perfume. And decorations. A thin gold necklace with a single diamond pointing to two perfect breasts, quarter-carat studs sparkling in the dim light of our dimly lit foyer, a bracelet with small diamonds and blue sapphires. I swallowed. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I remembered my pets, a guilty puppy, sad eyes, waving only the tip of its tail. Decent people do not abuse animals or vulnerable people. No, I won't hurt her anymore. Damn, I've already done enough. I entered. She assumed the desired expression on her face. Her liquid blue eyes blinked like crazy, not quite tear-stained, but also not confident. Her lower lip trembled slightly. What a manipulative bitch. No, not a bitch, a desperate ex-wife and mother. I headed into the office to my favorite chair, but she stood in the way. There's a ton of laundry in the room. Can we use the living room, please? Sure, I thought. The living room is suitable for what I have planned. We entered. I sat down on the sofa, position of dominance, legs crossed, hand on the back. She sat down next to him, kneeling down. Freshly washed, her skin was pink and shiny. I smelled her perfume, Chanel Chance, my favorite. I started. More than 2 years have passed. Do you know what you did? She fell into my arms. I just know that I love you. I pushed her away. You were a cheater, that's why I divorced you. I thought, get it. Her bottom lip trembled. I used poor judgment. I shouldn't have trusted Brandon. I thought, Brandon, like Casanova, wasn't big. She continued, I should have told you I was pregnant. I shouldn't have made you responsible for my medications. I was wrong. It was all my fault. I'm so sorry. I've loved you since that first day. Do you remember that first day? God, I hated that she mentioned that. Yes, I remembered. It was at the end of September at some random match, it seems rugby. I was there alone, sitting in the stands, studying and trying to catch some sun. Like Scarlett O'Hara at a barbecue, she was surrounded by her usual entourage of admirers. She was a freshman. I was a sophomore. I heard her whisper, "Who is it?" She secretly pointed at me. Someone said, "Nobody, just some dirty nerd." I was dirt too, dressed in faded dirty jeans and a torn t-shirt, dirty unkempt hair. I think I was making a statement too. She stood up. She left her pack of adoring fans. She came and sat down next to her. "What are you doing?" she asked. I said, "Trying to get some fresh air before I go to my part-time job." I've seen her around, Miss Prom Queen. I remembered being jealous of all these guys, to all her star-eyed fans. I added, "Some of us have to work to get through college." I wasn't trying to be nice. I knew I never stood a chance, not with her. She put her arm around mine. "I need a chaperone for the college president's dinner this Saturday night. Will you be my chaperone?" I was stunned. I was truly stunned. Only a select few students attended dinners with the president. I asked, "Why? Why do you want me?" Her answer, she said, "Because I think I'm falling in love." It was good. Little minx wanted to make a fool of me. I grinned. I was always good at grinning. "Me? You're kidding." She purred back, "I watched you, and I know you watched me. You were like a puppy, following me, too afraid to say anything." I frowned. "Me? Follow you? Seriously?" She smiled and chided. "It's all right. 5 o'clock on Saturday. I'm at Clufferford Hall." I grumbled, "I know which hall." She flashed her most brilliantly beautiful smile. "Of course you do. I know you do. 5 o'clock on Saturday, don't forget." She knew. She knew me. She knew everything. I was trapped, and I've been trapped ever since. The cunning, calculating, spoiled, manipulative little bitch always knew which buttons to push. And now I'm here, and she's doing it again. I growled. Listen, I don't forgive you. You're a lying, cheating bitch. You cheated on me and I hate you. She held my hand in hers. She kissed her. Yes, for you, I will say that it may all be true, but I still love you. I fell in love at first sight. You were outside Clufferford Hall, looking around. You were looking for me. I knew it. My friends told me. You didn't see me, but I saw you. You were so stupid and pompous. I fell in love with you. I will always love you. I confess that Brandon was with me that morning, but you walked in. I suddenly realized what was happening, what happened. I realized how wrong it was, and you were there to save me, but you got it all wrong. She swallowed and continued very sincerely. Curtis, I can't live like this anymore. You have to come home. If you don't come back, I'll just die. That's all, just like that. I couldn't let her die. She wasn't going to die. I thought. It just happened that what I knew and was waiting for came out. Brandon got to her. There was no accident that morning. She let it happen, but I knew it. She just said it, didn't she? Didn't she say? Well, didn't she say? I always knew. But so what? It was old news. She has been a good wife ever since. Hell, she held on to the ring even after I married Myra. It was devotion. I was her holy grail. What was the point of drowning her face in the mud again now? That, after more than 2 years of suffering, prayer, and hope, she deserved her redemption. I needed to get back to my plan. I said, well, I don't love you. I saw that it didn't matter. I could give her poison. She would accept it. She was set up for the long haul for life. I continued, I can't afford 2 mortgages and 2 separate families. I need to find an alternative, and I think I have an idea. She continued to kiss my hand. I will do whatever you want. I love you. I thought, bitch, but I said, here's what we can do. I'll let you marry me again. I'll come back here. That way I won't have to pay child support for Diana and Keith. She was already on my lap. I love you so much. I will take my medicine. I will wash your clothes. I will cook your favorite dishes. I will be your slave. I will make you so happy. I pulled my hand away and interrupted her. Shut up. Just shut up. It's not that simple. I'll demand a prenuptial agreement this time. No sentimental returns. This will be a business deal, strictly business. She grabbed my hand again. I will sign anything you say, do anything you say, go anywhere, be anything, as long as you come back to me, into my life, into my heart, and into our home. She especially emphasized our house. I thought my plan was good. I told her, you're really going to have to follow all my instructions. She cried, not loudly, just tears silently flowing down my cheeks, her right hand pressed to my chest, her head right under my chin, her hair tickling my nose. Lying bitch, she needed a kiss. She really needed it. I held her neck with my left hand. I lifted her face up with my thumb and forefinger. Eye to eye, almost nose to nose, I wiped away her tears with the fingers of my right hand. You will have to do whatever I say. Can you hear me? She nodded vigorously. Oh, I will. I will. I will continue to help Myra with her store until she can handle it, and I don't want any of your lying manipulations when I help her. Her soft cheek was right next to mine. I felt her hot breath, felt her hot body. She sang, no, sir, no manipulation, and I will help her too. You will see. You will be so proud of me. I growled, or tried to, just so you know. She breathed, oh, you fool. I know you. Of course you have to take care of Myra, and you know how much I love Wayne. I'll take good care of him and help Myra. You'll see, I love them both so much. And Kate and Diana will be so happy that their little brother will be here. You will see, I love you so much. I will make you so happy. I sighed. Just so you know, so you understand, I'm in charge. I make all the decisions. She sat down right next to me. She kissed me on the cheek. Oh, I understand. You're in charge. You make the decisions. You do everything. Well, I think I showed her. I put her in her place. I put her in her place, so I kissed her to seal the deal. Then we made love. And that is all. Time has passed. The months have flown by. Zoe and I, we got married again, this time in a simple civil ceremony. Her parents, my parents, Kate and Diana, my brother and his wife and children, and oh yes, Myra and Wayne were there. I made Zoe sign a prenuptial agreement. She didn't blink an eye. This was months ago. She's pregnant again. So what? We can afford it. At least that's what I think. Doesn't matter anyway. My book, yes, contract. They printed several thousand copies. Nobody wanted her. I think she was too boring. I think I'll try again, maybe something for the kids next time. Myra handled the divorce like a pro. She's still struggling with her little bookstore. I'm a partial owner. I'm helping her with expenses. Zoe has kept her word and frequents the bookstore. And as I expected, Myra is back on the hunt for the one. Myra and I went to Prendergast's farewell. I thought I could make a scene, but I never gave it up. I guess I could tell his wife, but I've heard stories. The man has his crosses. Looks like I'll never get into the Ivy League. So what? I think Zoe and I will be fine. She's clearly happy. Yes, I think so. I love her, I really do. It's nice to have her curled up in my arms at night, and the house full of happy children. However, the house is still under surveillance. That second pregnancy loss, it is not my fault. If I had known she was pregnant, I would never have left. Okay, it's all over now. Overall, I feel pretty good. Goodbye. Oh, and one more thing. I see that effeminate little wimp Brandon every now and then. I go to the gym, take classes, and train. He hasn't seen the last of me yet. No, sir. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.